1. Echoes of the Forgotten. Outside, the wind howled and the trees seemed to sway in response. I gathered the few items listed in the journal, candles, salt, and a tarnished silver knife, and arranged them as instructed. The moonlight streamed through the cabin's broken windows, casting an otherworldly glow on the makeshift altar. Trembling, I began to recite the incantation, the words foreign yet oddly familiar on my tongue. The air grew heavy, and I could swear I heard whispers, soft and insistent, like the secrets of the universe being spoken just beyond my hearing. The candle flames flickered and danced, casting strange shadows that danced around the room. And then, a cold gust of wind blew through the cabin, extinguishing the candles in an instant. The room plunged into darkness, and a sensation of dread unlike anything I had ever known washed over me. My heart raced as I fumbled for my flashlight, but when its beam pierced the darkness, I froze. Figures, shadowy and indistinct, seemed to materialize in the corners of the cabin. Their eyes glowed with an ethereal light, fixed upon me with an intensity that sent a chill down my spine. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to speak in a language I couldn't comprehend. Paralyzed by fear, I watched as the figures drew closer, their forms shifting and twisting as they moved. One reached out a spectral hand, its fingers grazing my skin like an icy breath. In that moment, I realized the true horror of my curiosity. I had awakened something beyond my understanding, something ancient and malevolent. With a surge of adrenaline, I turned and fled the cabin, crashing through the undergrowth in blind panic. The forest seemed to close in around me, every rustle and snap echoing with the presence of the spirits I had awakened. My mind raced, the journal's words echoing in my head as I stumbled through the darkness. As dawn broke and I stumbled out of the forest, my breath ragged and my heart pounding, I knew I had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. The legend of the Whispering Grove was no mere tale. It was a warning, a cautionary tale of the dangers of tampering with forces beyond human comprehension. To this day, I am haunted by the echoes of the forgotten, by the whispers that linger at the edge of my hearing. I share my story now as a warning to those who would seek to delve into the darkness, to those who would tread where they do not belong. For the spirits of the Whispering Grove are real, and their thirst for vengeance is eternal. 2. The Vanishing Village. The village of Millbrook nestled deep within the heart of the forest, a place forgotten by time and untouched by modern civilization. Its cobblestone streets were lined with centuries-old cottages, their thatched roofs sagging under the weight of history. Millbrook was known for its isolation and its inhabitants' unwavering adherence to ancient traditions. I had heard whispers about the village during my travels, tales of strange disappearances and eerie occurrences that sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest souls. Intrigued and drawn by the allure of the unknown, I decided to venture to Millbrook and see for myself what lay beneath the surface. As I walked along the overgrown path that led to the village, an unsettling silence enveloped me. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The trees seemed to lean in, their gnarled branches stretching like fingers, reaching out to catch me. Arriving at the outskirts of the village, I noticed the cottages were in various states of disrepair, their windows shattered and doors hanging askew. There was an eerie stillness that clung to the air, broken only by the faint rustling of leaves and the distant cawing of crows. As I walked deeper into the village, I was met with an odd sight. The cottages were seemingly abandoned, yet there were signs of recent activity. Plates of half-eaten food lay on tables, candles burned low, and hearths still held the remnants of dying fires. My footsteps echoed through the empty streets, each step reverberating with a sense of unease. I came across the village square, where a weathered well stood at its center. A cold wind swept through the square, and I shivered involuntarily. It was then that I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. A figure, hunched over and shrouded in tattered rags, emerged from an alleyway. As I approached, the figure turned, and I was met with hollow, sunken eyes that seemed to bore into my very soul. The person's lips moved, but only a raspy whisper emerged. "Beware, they come for us all," the figure croaked, a note of desperation in their voice. Before I could respond, the figure shuffled away, disappearing into the shadows. My heart raced, and I felt a growing sense of dread. The warnings of the villagers echoed in my mind, a chorus of cautionary tales that had been shared for generations. Night fell, and the village took on a sinister aura. I sought refuge in one of the abandoned cottages, my flashlight casting elongated shadows on the walls as I huddled in a corner. The wind outside howled like a mournful lament, and I strained to hear any movement beyond the creaking of the old timbers. As the night wore on, a creeping sense of unease settled over me. Whispers seemed to drift through the walls, disembodied voices murmuring incoherent phrases that sent shivers down my spine. The air grew colder, and I could see my breath in the dim light. Suddenly, a distant, mournful wail pierced the silence. It was a sound that seemed to carry an unbearable weight of sorrow, a haunting melody that reverberated through the very core of my being. The walls of the cottage seemed to tremble in response, and I clutched my ears in a futile attempt to block out the sound. With a sudden jolt, the door to the cottage swung open, and a freezing gust of wind swept through the room. The wail grew louder, more insistent, and shadows danced along the walls, taking on sinister forms. My heart pounded in my chest as I stumbled backward, my flashlight flickering and dying. In the darkness, I could feel the presence of something malevolent, something that hungered for my fear. I could hear whispers now, distinct and malicious, as if the very walls themselves were taunting me. Panic gripped me as I fumbled for the door, desperate to escape the suffocating dread that surrounded me. I burst out of the cottage, gasping for air, and found myself in the village square once again. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the empty streets. But something was different now. The well at the center of the square seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. As I approached the well, I felt a pull, a force that drew me closer against my will. The water within the well rippled and churned, as if a hidden current coursed beneath its surface. I could hear whispers rising from the depths, whispers that seemed to speak directly to my mind. In a moment of desperation, I tore my gaze away from the well and fled the village. The trees seemed to sway, as if bidding me farewell, and the wind carried with it a final mournful wail. I stumbled through the forest, my heart pounding, until I finally emerged onto the path that led away from that accursed place. To this day, I carry the memory of Millbrook with me, haunted by the vanishing village and the sinister secrets it held. The whispers of the past linger in my ears, a reminder that some mysteries are best left untouched, some places best left forgotten.